Ready? Ready. Okay. We're going to turn it over to Carlos. This is your committee.
I'd like to call the Policy and Legislation Committee meeting to order. Everybody please rise to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, Mr. President, if it's okay, I'd like people to take their masks off when they're speaking, just so that people on the call can hear. Thank you.
Roll call, Chavez.
Here.
Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Mason. Here. Mora. O'Connell. Here. Sosa.
Yeah.
Okay. Have any public participation? More. Any at this time? Any old business? Moving on to new business, we do have a policy 722.2, prevention of and responding to bullying, intimidation, harassment. Changes are based on new changes to school policy. Without procedures, anybody has any questions? Not? Just move forward to close the session. We'll read it in the first reading of the regular board.
Sure. Any questions, objections?
Okay. Close it. Turn over to Hightower.
Let's do a joint first.
Oh, sure.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Mr. Chavez. Appreciate it. We're going to go right into our facilities and committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Here.
Jackson. Mason. Here. Mora. O'Connell. Here. Sosa.
Okay. We have any public participation written or all? Okay. Any old business? Okay. New business.
Yeah, we have Jeremy with Tobane Company, Jeremy Rolling with Tobane Company to present information on the change order, to review that with the board. And then there'll be an update on the construction budget, followed by a project update. We also have Mr. Schuster and Critter from Wolf with us for any additional questions.
Dan, when you slip in, when you see you slip in. Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to start. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start it again this week with the project update, and then I'll switch over to the change orders if that's okay. So I want to start by showing the drone video. It's been about 3 weeks since we last met here, and if any of you have driven by the daylight, there's a significant change. This video was taken last Monday, so a week ago. So you can see here the two gymnasiums are taking shape. We're flying to the south in that first shot. The steel erection is going on at the south end of the building. That's what we call Area A. You can see the larger crane here in this shot. Setting the precast structure for the MacArthur Gymnasium. Steel there again, A. We'll be starting steel in Area E, which is just east of there next week, or actually late this week. The precast structure in this video is about 50%, maybe 60% complete. We have at this point in time, we have basically 1 day of setting panels and roof structure. So about half of that, actually probably 3/4 of that structure has the concrete roof on it now. And we'll be finishing that up by the end of this week. So that is your storm shelter. The gymnasium there with the yellow floor, that was the Sunnyside Gymnasium that was prepped for a concrete pour. And that pour has been completed. And we actually finished setting the structural steel for the roof of that gym today as well. So Things are moving along quite nicely. We continue to be on schedule. Masonry work is slated to wrap up here right before Thanksgiving with as far as we can go with the load-bearing masonry. So that's great timing on that as the weather is turning cold on us, and it'll eliminate some heating needed for the load-bearing masonry, which we had not planned for. Usually you can get up to Thanksgiving right thereabout. So like I said, we're right on schedule with that. We're right on, we're lagging a little behind due to some unforeseens on the precast, but it is not affecting the overall schedule, so nothing to concern yourselves with there. And steel is continuing to show up on schedule. So we've got, we took 2 deliveries of steel today. We're taking, I think 3 more loads on Thursday this week, and then more on the following Monday. So it's just going to keep rolling through here. And we'll continue building the building from the south to the north. We do anticipate where the steel is at on the south end of the site. We do anticipate starting to install metal decking on the 2nd floor this week, and then concrete pours for the slab on grade 1st floor, as well as the 2nd floor of that area will be going in the first part of December. So we're working on our temporary heating and winter conditions plan. We bought in the building in the scopes of work that you guys approved the enclosure of the 1st floor when you approve the bids. So we have tarping of the entire 1st floor so we can temporarily heat that. So we haven't started that yet, but probably in the next 3 weeks, give or take, we'll be starting to enclose and starting to heat so that we can start overhead roughing of ductwork, piping, electrical conduit, all that stuff, and keep plugging away through the winter. So we will start some roofing mid to late December as well on a couple of the areas. And then our bar joists for the majority of the roof, steel bar joists, are not scheduled until February, which we knew that at the time of bid when we accepted the bids. So all that's in accordance with the project schedule that we were marching to currently. So all is good news on the progress update. I don't know if anyone has any questions from what they've seen in either the video or driving by the site.
Well, I've done both. So only question I have once again, are we having any issues with supplies?
No, currently no. So we continue to monitor. I just sat and reviewed some things today on mechanical, electrical stuff. There's little stuff coming up here and there, but nothing we haven't been able to manage through. You know, one of the big concerns is roofing materials, along with a multitude of other things, but roofing is one of the ones that's coming up, and we've been assured that our material is available when we need it mid-December. We're actually meeting with the roofing product rep tomorrow, just for another level of assurance. So, you know, at this point, again, I would say no, nothing to be alarmed of material-wise. We're trying to stay ahead of it.
Carlos, do you have any?
No, I've actually used all my questions.
That's every meeting.
Yeah, I was going to ask about material impact
Okay.
and cost impact.
Everything's included in the bid. The material prices are guaranteed throughout the life of the project. So, you know, there's a lot of fluctuating. Right, you know, we're bidding North Lake and Riley right now. We're out to bid there, and material prices, you know, continue to fluctuate. I keep hearing certain materials are going up, you know, on a weekly and bi-weekly basis there. So we'll see what the bids come in like there. But for this project right here, we're locked in.
And we have Dr. Modi in the audience today. Dr. Modi, are you ready for your project at North Lake and Raleigh?
We are ready and excited, so I think we're going to start pretty soon. Staff is ready. Long time coming for us.
Yeah, Jeremy? He's ready.
I know.
All right.
We're going to see them on Wednesday afternoon. So, yeah.
Good. Any other questions from the board for Jeremy?
Okay. Good, thank you. So I'm going to flip next to the change order log, which kind of shows the summary of all changes that have been approved to date, and then as well as the ones that we're asking for your approval on tonight. And Joe, if you could just scroll down a little bit to the bottom of this first page. On this page, I want to highlight a little bit up. I want to highlight a couple of things. So last month, when we met, I asked for a not to exceed approval on 2 items and told you I'd come back to you with a final price, right? So those are highlighted in orange here for you tonight. The first one being district change order number 12 here, which was approved last month at a cost of $16,970. We were able to work that price down to $10,347. That's the final number.
I like that.
So that was the grease interceptor revision. We did quite a bit of work on that change order to get there, and we feel that's a good number. So we're done with that one. What's that? Yeah. Yep. So there was a multitude of things that happened there. We were able to work the labor down. We were able to get the grease interceptor that had already been delivered. The manufacturer finally agreed to take it back, so we don't have a spare one sitting around and give nothing to do with. So that helped with the cost as well. The second one here, scroll down to the top of the next page, Joe, was district change order number 16. And that was the ComEd service conduits that we talked about, and the fact that we needed to get going with that work so that we could get ComEd power into the site, which we do have. I forgot to say that. ComEd livened our permanent transformer up last Friday. So we have power on the site available to do temporary lighting and heating as we need moving forward. So that's a big step. You guys approved that change order is $45,000 not to exceed. And there we reduced that cost down to $37,963. So we tracked that work on time and material. The material there, being a 5-inch PVC conduit, was extremely high priced, but it was what it was. We tracked it down, we got the vendor invoices, so there was no, we knew what they paid for. So, and it was a lot of work to get that in. That's a big step, like I said last month. That's a key component to continuing to build through the winter so that we have temporary power or permanent power available to us in the low that we need. So the last section here is the just kind of the summary of where we're at to date, right? So previously, ahead of tonight, you guys had approved $75,943 with, and that does take into account the 2 items highlighted in orange and the changes of those approved amounts. And then tonight I'm going to walk you through change orders valued at $85,099. We've just got a couple of estimated changes. You can see the number estimated highlighted in yellow are down, so we're only working on really 3 change orders at this point. And I'll have those for your approval in December. But we're left with almost 96% of the contingency remaining. If everything is, for approval tonight and estimated stands as I have here. So I think we're in really good shape. The project is progressing. The contingency is not flying out the door at an exorbitant rate. I think it's right on track. So.
What's the percentage of our project?
What's that?
What's the percentage of our project completed?
Completed, we're probably around the, about 10%, we're 10% cost, probably right around 15% construction. They tend to cost lag a little bit, but yeah, so 13 to 15% range. Okay. So the next, I'm just going to walk through then. We have 6 change orders for your approvals. They're change orders 17 through 22. I'm going to walk through those. And again, if you guys have questions on them, feel free to stop me. The first one here is change order 11, which deals with some added fire alarm devices, some electrical revisions. Came out of a couple of different things. Fire alarm reviews, comments from the city, the fire marshal. So all in all, we added 6 fire alarm pull stations that weren't required by code necessarily, but the district felt that they were needed for safety outside the gymnasiums, and then at the main office and cafeterias, I believe, were the other 2. So they're in select locations rather than being as they used to be, spread throughout the building. That's for safety measures. So we added those, and then smoke detectors in the IDF closets as well. So this one came out as an ad of $6,408. Right. Change order 18 then is associated with PR 13. This again is requirements, and it's really a coordination between the door hardware specifications and the door hardware that's being installed with the security drawings, the fire alarm drawings, to make sure that they're all interacting. And then revisions to the wireless access points, a couple of clock locations, and some cameras were all included in this. This one came out to be an ad of $12,808. Change order 19 then is associated with SI 15. This one is the only one I'm asking for your approval of as a not to exceed tonight. So there's a couple of different things. There's some exterior wall details being changed from masonry to framing for constructability reasons. The ease of constructing and making sure that we get the details right, as well as the need for some interior, some added interior drywall furring walls. And what that means is we've got a block masonry wall that we weren't able to get the plumbing or electrical devices in due to structural integrity of the wall. And so we needed to move that infrastructure outside the block and into a drywall at a later date. So we've got some add for framing material, drywall, finishing of that, of those walls. So this one, my request is a not to exceed price of $22,173. We're working on that. We're reviewing with the whole team some options on the framing, changes at the outside that may further reduce this number. But as I stand here tonight, I've already got $2,200 knocked off of the price that I'm asking here not to exceed. So it's just a matter of, we're diligently working on this behind the scenes, and I can only update the paperwork for so long. So we're under 20,000 as we stand here tonight, and I think we can knock some more off that with some stuff we're talking about now. So we'll bring that one back to you next month for the final. Okay. Change order 20 then is associated with PR 17. This was, Dan, you may, or Fred, you guys may have more insight on this one. The bathrooms were designed as gender neutral. So when you walked in off the main corridor, 6 of the bathrooms, I should say, as you walked in off the main corridor, the sinks were straight in the restroom. IDPH plumbing inspector had an issue with that, so we went back and forth. Basically, at the end of the day, we had to move the sinks so that as you come into the bathrooms, you either turn left or you turn right, and the sinks would be on those walls. So we had to rework some plumbing and added a bunch of water lines just because we were going to one location before, we're now going to 2. The outlets associated with the sinks also moved and/or in some cases double. Sinks changed. So this one, there was a lot of pieces. We had to add like 12-inch privacy walls next to the sinks so that you couldn't see from the corridor in. It kind of shields that sink a little bit. And those walls are tiled. So things compounded on that one, and we're asking for an add of $44,571.
It's Illinois Department of Public Health.
Correct.
What are we doing for $44,000?
Go ahead. Sure.
So instead of having the restrooms, because of the ability to have these group restrooms to be gender neutral if you choose to go that route in the future. Right now they'll operate as boys and girls, but the bathroom sinks were outside, just outside the bathroom, so they're supervisable, and girls and boys can go out and wash at the wash fountains. Plumbing inspector didn't want to have that viewable from the corridor, so they want it to be more gender specific. Doesn't take away the ability to have it more gender neutral in the future, but we had to move those sinks to another location so they were shielded from the corridor. We had to put a little wing wall in a couple locations to help that privacy. It's kind of an obscure interpretation. He didn't want to be able to see the sinks from the corridor. Felt that was encouraging the the plumbing and health requirements haven't caught up with some of the gender neutral and privacy bathroom initiatives that are happening. So it's a little bit of old school, new school thinking. But that affected, in some locations, we actually had one large wash fountain. We ended up going to 2 to split them for more of a boys and girls situation. And so more plumbing and more piping. Same
These bathrooms.
Six total. Yeah,
Six total bathrooms.
Yeah, they're all multi-user bathrooms, right? So,
What $8,000 per bed?
Pardon?
What, $8,000 per bed?
8,000 bed. Are we adding more fixtures? Is it just more partition?
more fixtures in some cases. Some we were able to use, just split the 2 that were there. In certain cases, we had one of the 3-person sinks or 2-person sinks. We had to then go to individual sinks or double sinks, but have them split by gender versus having them shared in one area. So there was some wash fountain. So there's some credits along with that, but there was also, it adds, exceeded the credits because we're taking something away by splitting. A lot of more sanitary lines for more locations, the length of lines, plumbing, things like that, really driving the cost.
Or are these lines that had already been set and we're having to redo?
in 2 of the 6 locations, yes, and they've already been redone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we validating the costs that contractors are coming back? Compared to what was bid. So for example, if we were provided a bid of $100 and X amount per fixture, are we validating that you're not doubling your price, the hourly cost and the fixture?
Yeah, so, we, and I say we as a team, because we as Gilbane first review, we collect all the pricing, we review it, I get it to where I feel is comfortable. And then we sit with Wolf and the district here and review those change orders ahead of this meeting so that we're all, on the same page and have an understanding what the change orders being presented are. So receiving pricing from the contractors is a multi-step process. Obviously, we have 30-some contracts, so we get everybody's piece. We collect labor rates from them, and then we validate those labor rates, right? So there's union breakdowns to all the labor rates. If you're familiar. They're allowed 10% overhead and profit per the contract between them and Gilbane. So we make sure that the overhead and profit's correct. We make sure they're not adding a bunch of ancillary or miscellaneous line items onto the labor rate breakdowns. That is basically straight for the union rates for that discipline. And then on the material side of things, if it's miscellaneous pipe and fittings, most of the plumbing and electrical contractors, they all have a system that's commonly used through the industry for pricing. But when we get into some of the bigger stuff like equipment or large quantities of pipe, we'll ask them and receive their vendor pricing, their invoices from their vendors, so that we can make sure that it's market pricing. With some of this stuff that's up and down, obviously, all the time. But we do validate and collect all that back up, so it's not just a one-page cover letter that says add $10,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Good question, Carlos.
So I do have 2 more. These 2 are easier. Change order number 21 is a change to kitchen equipment. So the kitchen equipment vendor requested a substitution on the refrigeration equipment and made a suggestion to change to Valley refrigeration from the design system. The Wall team reviewed that substitution request, approved that, found that it was equal or greater than the product, and has approved that. So there's a credit of $3,000 available to the district for making that change. That's in regards to the walk-in cooler and fridge.
So the district be accommodating those type of freezers throughout the district, or just for the remodel schools?
Just for this one, for right now, but on North Lake and Riley, Valley refrigeration is now in the specification as an acceptable manufacturer as well.
Okay, sorry.
So there's a possibility that they may get both schools, just depends on the bidding and who the select, who the awarded contractor chooses.
Okay.
And then the last one is change order 22. So this one, there was more of a beverage cooler, if you will, so a small, almost like mini fridge. There's an existing one in the Sunnyside MacArthur cafeteria now. The plan was to match, to use the existing one and provide one new one to match that. But the model, the make and model that is currently here in place is no longer available. So we can't match it. So we received a credit for what was included at bid time from the kitchen equipment contractor, and the add of $2,139 would get you 2 brand new identical matching beverage coolers. They are going to be in the same cafeteria space. So I think it makes sense in a brand new cafeteria to make them match each other and have new. So one thing we did talk about with this is we believe North Lake Riley may have a matching one to what's here at Sunnyside and MacArthur. So instead of buying 2 new ones to North Lake Riley, there's the possibility that we might be able to move one from here to over there and make a matching pair in the new cafeteria over there. We're still exploring that option. So, but this ad for your approval tonight would take care of Sunnyside and MacArthur with 2 new ones.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Jeremy? Good update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, you have anything you want to add? No?
No, I think you covered it. I know the plumbing inspector one, unfortunately, they don't, until they assign an inspector to the job, it's very difficult for them to look at drawings ahead of time and make those rulings. They need to see it in place. And we don't always know who the inspector is going to be assigned. So it's a little bit reactive, but I think we caught it early enough where we made good choices. And it doesn't lose the functionality that you might lean towards in the future, having that more gender neutral setup.
Thank you, Dan. And Mr. Schuster, you have anything you want to add? So you train him in the right direction, right? Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Appreciate that.
Pretty soon we'll get the coffee called Mr. as well. It's Mr. Schuster and then Jeremy and Dan.
Because you guys are probably getting to know him, all right? We're going to look more responsible.
I'll make it over there next month.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Rowling, did you have an update on the budget where the actuals came in? Did you want to share?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So, and I forgot my sheet, so I don't have it in front of me, so I'm gonna work off memory, but I'm pretty accurate. So we finished the bidding for North Lake Drive, we finished the bidding for Sunnyside and MacArthur. You're gonna be requested to approve 4 bids tonight. With those bids, we came in $4.4 million under budget on Sunnyside and MacArthur. We still have work to do, right? We're still bidding North Lake and Riley. We've got 20 bid packages on the street right now that are due December 7th for the completion of that project. We have 2 awarded, if you remember. We have steel and concrete awarded. So we sit in very good shape, I think, against the overall budget. The bids that you're going to review tonight all came in under budget. All the low bidders checked out when we did their scope reviews. And we feel they're all good bids. So, that's great news. 4.4 million is a lot of money to be ahead. So we're glad to be in that position, and it'll put us in good shape. North Lake Riley, we've got really good interest in bids. It's just a more challenging project, right? It's spread across 2 summers. It's renovation work. It's not as clean. So we tend to see our unit prices or our bid rates come in a little higher on work like that. But we've estimated it that way, and I hope that next month, we've got good numbers to present you for bids on that project as well.
And we plan on groundbreaking in February, right? For North Lake Drive.
Yeah, end of February, early March, yeah.
Anyone, any questions, board? Once again, good update. Thank you. Laura, what else?
That is the end of our items for the facilities committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a motion? Ms. Mason, Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Motion carries.
Okay. We're gonna go right into our regular board meeting, so roll call, please.
Chavez.
Here.
Hightower.
Here.
Jackson. Mason. Here. Mora. O'Connell. Here. Sosa.
Okay. I see we have a presentation.
We have Tammy Vaccination from PMA Securities for a presentation on the third and final bond issue and some potential opportunities for refunding.
Welcome, Tammy, and we know you're gonna get some good news. Let's see.
I think I do. It's so nice to see all of you in person. I cannot believe we're talking about the final piece of your referendum authority. So I'm going to go through, we did a presentation, we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about a refunding opportunity that Laura mentioned at the end. So I'm just going to jump right into the PowerPoint and first focus on slide 3. So just as a quick history, as you all know, you sold most of your referendum authority. You generated $96 million in proceeds so far. Your most recent sale was earlier this year where you sold $70 million, which was on top of the $26 million that you had sold in 2020. So you have $9 million left of the $105 million to generate. You may recall back when the referendum campaign was in process, the information that was communicated based on conservative interest rate assumptions at that time is that for a $200,000 market value home, the impact on a tax bill is estimated in the first year, levy year 20, calendar 21 bills, was $558, which is reflective of an estimated $1.16 increase in the tax rate. That actual impact is about $390 based on a tax rate increase of only 72 cents. So you definitely have the benefit of market improvement based on when we had made the projections before the referendum. And what you'll see in a minute is that we've seen continued improvement in the market. But you have just been able to take advantage of your bond sales so far at the absolute perfect times in history, which I'll show you in a minute. Because of the way the bond structure is all together, we need to make sure that this final $9 million piece impacts the 2021 levy. And to do that, we need to make sure that the bonds are sold by March 1st of 2022. Now, of course, you'll approve your operating levy, the rest of your levy in December, but the county clerk gives you a couple more months to be able to impact the levy when it comes to bonds. So that's why that will occur a couple months later, as you'll see in the timeline I'll go through with you in a minute. So let's first talk about the interest rate market. If you look at slide 4, this is going back to 2003. We have looked at this chart together before. This was a reminder. The gray shaded area in the background is what the Fed has done with short-term interest rates historically. We put that here because it's an important reference point. But a lot of times people think that the only thing that influences municipal bonds is the Fed, and that's simply not true. It's one of the factors, but there are other factors at play as well, which I'll talk more about in a minute. The different colored lines on this chart represent different points on what's called the Municipal Market Data Index, or the MMD for short. So your bonds are going to sell at a spread to or relative to what the index is doing at any given time. So we care very much about the trends in the MMD. And there's a circle on the right-hand side of the page, and that is the onset of COVID in March of 2020 and how it began to impact the municipal bond market. We've been enjoying a great interest rate environment since then. And if you go to slide 5, you can see this a little bit more clearly. So prior to March of 20, rates at that point were actually near historical lows. Then COVID struck, and the markets, all markets really went crazy, and the municipal bond market was no different. The rates spiked, they came back down, and we started this great recovery by the beginning of May of 2020. I have 2 boxes on this slide pointing to different points in time. One is August of 20, and one is February of 21, and those are the spots where you sold bonds, and they also were, from a historical standpoint, the lowest points in history in the municipal bond market. So you've been able to take advantage of that by acting swiftly when we've had conversations about the market and getting ready to sell. You've been so responsive, which has been super helpful in the long run in locking in lower interest rates. Now we're of course on the right-hand side, and you can see rates are up a little bit relative to where they were, those two low points in the last year and a half. So knowing we've got this $9 million piece out there, you're still looking at a great interest rate environment. What's the main reason for keeping rates so low so far this year? It really has to do with supply and demand. There's just not enough municipal bonds supply to keep up with the demand from investors. They want safe investments. Municipal bonds are very attractive, and there's just not been enough supply. And we anticipate that into the first quarter of 2021, and even possibly into the latter half of 2022 and later into the year, that may continue as well. We'll have to see. That's really what's helping right now. So if we go to slide 6, I apologize these numbers are so small. I have a picture version of it on the next slide. But here you can see your overall debt service, the bonds you sold before, and then there's a column shaded in kind of that light blue to show the structure for your Series 2022 bond. As a reminder, for each series of bonds we've sold related to the referendum, each one is at a final maturity of 20 years, which statutorily is how long you have the bond issue, okay? So in aggregate, your referendum in its entirety is a 22-year maturity schedule. So taking advantage of that opportunity to stretch the payments out longer, kind of manage the interest impact on homeowners. But given that the market's been so strong, it's really not added a whole lot in terms of the interest cost of the district. Right now, we estimate for this transaction in early 2022 the $9 million that you still have to sell, building in 0.5% of cushion, because rates may be somewhat higher by the time we actually get to the market. You can see the estimated true interest cost on the bonds is just over 3%. So if we didn't have the cushion right now, it would be about 2.5% for a 20-year transaction, which is pretty outstanding. Okay. If you look at the next slide, I like looking at this because it helps me kind of visualize, all right, what's the picture look like in one place that jumps out at me? What this is communicating to you is when you look at the dark blue bars, which are the referendum bonds, the 96 million you've sold so far, plus the lighter blue bars on top of them, it's a pretty flat debt service payment structure. That was the goal with the referendum. The good news is the tops of the bars are just lower than what our original estimate was. Okay, so your total borrowing cost is less because of the great interest rate environment we've been in. Okay, so unless you have any questions about the referendum plan, the remaining $9 million, I'm going to shift gears to the refunding opportunity. Okay, think of any more I can call you to come back to.
No questions? On board? Great, Hank.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to shift gears then to slide 9. You as a district have sold bonds on a tax-exempt basis for capital projects before. Much like the 96 million you've sold, the 9 million you're about to sell, you have some other bonds you've sold before on a tax-exempt basis. That means investors who've bought their bonds in the past do not have to pay federal income taxes on their interest earnings in that investment in your bonds, right? That's good for you, it's good for the investor. It's not so great for the federal government because they lose money when you sell federally tax-exempt bonds. And with that privilege comes certain restrictions. And so when you've sold tax-exempt bonds before, the IRS says if you want to refund them, and refund is analogous really with like refinancing the mortgage on your house. We're going to refund or refinance your bonds, try to get you a lower interest rate, which means lower annual principal and interest or debt service payments. The IRS says, okay, based on the way the rules are right now, you have 2 ways you can go about this, District 87. One is to do it now if you want to, anytime, on a taxable basis. Taxable interest rates are higher than tax-exempt rates. And the IRS doesn't care how many times you sell taxable bonds. Or you can wait to do what they call a current refunding on a tax-exempt basis. And that means you do the transaction within 90 days of what's called the call date, okay? So when you have sold bonds before, You've told investors you want the flexibility as a board to maybe refund them at some point down the road. So if interest rates are lower in the future, you want that flexibility. And investors accept that. There's standard call features, as we call them. They accept that in the market. So when you originally sold the bonds in the first place, you didn't pay a penalty for having that call date within a certain range as anticipated, okay? So those are the two ways that we can go about this. One of the unfortunate things that has happened with the infrastructure bill in Washington is we were hoping that they would give back tax-exempt advance refundings, meaning you could refund these bonds on a tax-exempt basis whenever you want. We used to be able to do that until 4 years ago. They took it away with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. We were very hopeful we were going to get it back with this legislation in Washington, and we just learned that it's not going to happen. So that means our options are to basically look at doing a taxable refunding now of these bonds, I'm going to show you in a minute, or wait until we get to the calls. So if we go to slide 10, this is a picture of all of the principal payments on your existing bonds. Anything that's inside a box in shaded green means it's callable, and you have the ability as a board to refund them for savings at some point down the road. One of the call dates is circled in purple, and it's under the Series 2013 A bonds, and you'll notice that has a call date of December 1st of 2022, so about a year away. That's the bond issue we're going to talk about tonight because that one is coming up. If you look to the right, your Series 20 and 21 bonds, the referendum bonds, those call dates aren't until 2030. So it's way too preliminary to think about refunding those. The good news is you've locked them at such low rates. Who knows if a future board will be able to generate much savings, but it's a way far down the road conversation. We're too far away from it. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, this is showing you the debt service payments on your non-referendum bonds. The 2013 A bonds we're talking about are non-referendum bonds, so you didn't have to have referendum approval for these bonds that were sold back in 2013. And that purple circle represents the debt service payments that are callable. So the prior slide showed you principal payments. This is debt service. So the goal here is to take those debt service payments and lower them annually if we can with a refunding. Okay. So if we go to the next slide, just a couple more high-level details on these 2013 A bonds. So you've got maturities from 2024 through 2032, about $3.5 million that are callable, as I said before, on December 1st of 2022. The average interest rate on these callable bonds is 3.16%. So if we're going to refund those bonds, we've got to come in with a rate that's lower. And the general rule of thumb is rates today need to be at least 1 percentage point lower than that rate that's listed up there. And as a reminder, those bonds were sold in 2013 for capital projects. They were sold as working cash bonds. You funded various capital projects that I know Laura probably could recite everything that you spent that money on because she's got such a good memory of that stuff. But they were for capital projects. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to show you in a second some estimated savings. But first, I want to talk to you about the taxable bond market. The reason I'm showing you this U.S. Treasury rate graph is because taxable bond rates trade or sell relative to what the U.S. Treasury market's doing. They're quoted, taxable rates are quoted at a spread to or a difference to what the Treasury rate would be in a particular spot in the yield curve. Okay, so you can see what the trends have been. This goes back to January of 20. Also, we had some volatility because of COVID. And rates came up in the middle part of 21. They've been coming back down. If I took this chart and took it back another 30 years, what you would see is that taxable rates are also near historical lows because of the Treasury market, much like the tax-exempt market. So that leads us to the next slide. So I'm going to show you the first of two estimated savings calculations. So what this slide is saying is, knowing we're going to sell the referendum bonds in February, what if we looked at refunding the callable bonds from 2013 at the same time, but we know under federal tax law, they have to be taxable. What's our estimate based on current rates of what the savings would be? We are not extending the final maturity on the bonds that we refund. So as of now, those bonds are paid off on December 1st of 32. We're not making it longer, we're not shortening it, we're keeping the same footprint, okay? And what this is saying, if you go to the right-hand side of the page, the column shaded in yellow, total savings of about $167,000, that would be the total amount of savings that you would realize in the current market, meaning you lower property tax bills in aggregate by about $167,000. Whenever we look at refunding calculations, we always look at the numbers on a present value basis. So what's the value of that $167,000 over time? What does it equal today, in today's dollars? That's provided in the second line from the bottom shaded in yellow, about $151,000. When I take that number and I divide it by the amount of principal that you're refunding, which is about $3.5 million, I get that percentage there of about 4.25%. And by the way, all of these numbers incorporate estimated cost of issuance that have already been factored in. The general rule of thumb in the municipal bond industry is if that net present value calculation is at least 3%, then you as a Board of Education should at least have the conversation and consider refunding them, okay? The other thing I want to make mention of is negative arbitrage is in the box at the bottom of about $59,000. What is that? So, as I mentioned, the call date on the bonds is December 1st of 2022. It's about a year away. So, it's trying to help you understand what's the inefficiency of the escrow. So the good news is interest rates are so incredibly low on the borrowing side. They're also low, good or bad, on the investment side, okay? There is the fourth line up, you'll see there's a line that says net PD cash flow savings at 2.409% or AIC, all in cost, okay? So that's the rate we're looking at for funding. I mentioned earlier you need to be at least 1 percentage point lower than the 3.16% rate you have now. This is our estimate of what the refunding rate would be. Ideally, we could get up to that rate in the escrow. So here's what happens. When you sell refunding bonds, you generate an amount of proceeds and you put it into an escrow. And the money earns interest in the escrow until that call date of December 1st of 2022. And investors that own any bond that's callable after that date, they get their principal back on that date. They don't get interest after that, but they're going to be made whole and get their principal back. So what happens is, if we do this transaction in February, that's approximately 9 to 10 months, right? That we have an escrow outstanding. Ideally, we'd love to get a rate of about 2%, which is what the law says is the maximum rate you can get in that escrow while it's invested. We can't get anywhere near 2% because those rates are so low. So it basically is saying if we could get that higher rate, it'd be a perfectly efficient escrow. I could take that estimated $59,000 of negative arbitrage and add it to the $167,000 of savings represented in the top column on the right. It's already been netted out, but if I could get a perfect rate in that escrow, I'd have more savings up there. The closer you get to the call date, over time, the amount of negative arbitrage will go down because we simply don't have to invest it for as long. Okay, let's look at scenario 2. This is saying, all right, let's wait. What if we just hold on? Let's see what happens with tax exempt rates. We know per law, the law that we can refund this in the fall of 2022 basically. You can do a transaction. You could actually be in the market by August of 22. You can close it after the beginning of September of 22. So based on current rates in the tax exempt market, we're saying total estimated savings now is almost $290,000. And on a present value basis at the bottom, it's about $265,000 or almost 7.5%. Of course, this is the better option, right? Because tax exempt rates are lower, we're closer to the call date. I don't have any negative arbitrage to worry about because I'm so close to that call date. But this is assuming current rates in the tax exempt market. So we always have to look at the break-even analysis, which is talked about on the next slide, meaning how much do rates have to go up in the tax exempt market between February of 22 in September of '22 that you as a district would be better off doing a taxable refunding sooner? And the answer is 0.5%, okay? So it's not a huge amount of market movement, but it's also not insignificant, okay? So that really becomes kind of the thought for all of you to reflect upon is interest rate risk tolerance, right? Do we want to wait and see what happens? Do we want to lock in savings that we can get? What's the approach? So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to come back to that in a second because we have a timeline that incorporates both the referendum and this refunding. We wanted you just to know what to expect here over the next couple of months. We'd like to bring a parameters resolution to you at your December board meeting, which establishes certain parameters. And you may recall, as a board, you've adopted parameters resolutions for your last 2 bond sales for the referendum. It gives flexibility to the board so that we can lock in an interest rate when it's most beneficial to the district. And I would say that has worked very, very well so far, okay? That resolution is valid for 6 months. So we have the ability to watch the market, and if we get all of a sudden rates going up, we can step back. We don't have to price on the day we said we originally would. We can delay it a week or two. We love the flexibility. The parameters resolution will incorporate both the remaining $9 million of referendum authority, but it would also incorporate this refunding, okay? It doesn't bind you or obligate you as a board to ever do the refunding. If rates should start to go in the wrong direction and we don't like the savings, you don't have to do it, but it gives us the flexibility to enable you to do it, okay? So with that, we would, by the end of January, update the district's credit rating because every time you sell bonds, you have to update your credit rating. And then in early February, we would plan to sell the remaining $9 million of referendum authority. And depending on where the market's at that time, we may also follow through with the sale of the refunding bonds, okay? As long as we're happy with what that minimum savings level is at that point. Okay, and then the delegates that are named in that parameters resolution that you as a board approve next month, they would be the ones ultimately to provide the verbal and written authority to sign off on the results. Okay, and then the transaction would close on March 1st. So we hit our deadline for the referendum bonds, right, to hit the 21 levy. And then again, if the refunding makes sense, we lock that in and everything closes on March 1st. So in terms of that 50 basis points of break-even market movement, right? So if tax-exempt rates start creeping up, which there could be some rise in rates by the time we get to early February, that break-even might be smaller. It might be 40 basis points or 35. We could also maybe go the other way for some reason. If we were still at 50 basis points, or even if the break-even was higher by then, I would likely recommend to the delegates, to the district, that we hold off. You don't have to do the refunding in February. But if it starts to drop, if we get closer to that 25 basis points, if that's what the break-even changes to, then I think we need to seriously consider locking in the refunding at the same time with the referendum bonds. Okay? And unfortunately, my crystal ball is broken today, but I do think we could have some normal volatility in the market by the time we're to February 8th, in either direction. We'll just have to see. But I wanted to give you the assurance that we are not rushing in to do the refunding if it doesn't make sense for the district. We can be patient about this and try to do it when it's best for the district. It's possible we could monitor the market for 6 months after that parameters resolution is locked in, and it's June of 22, and we haven't done anything yet. Well, then we come back to you with another parameter resolution so that we could get the transaction done later in the summer or early fall. We've got flexibility. Okay. So why don't I pause there and see what questions we may have on that or even the referendum discussion.
On the permanent resolution, you present that to us for the December meeting, is that correct?
I beg your pardon?
You present that resolution to us for the December meeting?
December, that's right, yes.
And in that presentation, you will give us some pointers on what we should not do based on the market.
I would be glad to give you another update on what the market's been doing. Let's see how that break even has changed, and we can talk about it again there.
All right.
Correct.
Board, have any questions?
I had some questions, but they were answered with the rest of the presentation. What's the rate at right now?
So based on the referendum or on the reflected portion? Or both?
Both.
So on the referendum portion, based on current rates, you'd be at about a 2.55%. Okay, the numbers I showed you in the PowerPoint added 50 basis points or 0.5% of cushion, just in case rates would move. But if we were to lock it in today, it'd be about 2.55%. And on the refunding, if you did a taxable refunding in February, based on current rates, it'd be about 2.05%.
No questions. Board? Apparently, Tammy did a very good job.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. You always do, man. Good stuff.
Thank you, I know
Good
it's a lot, I
stuff.
appreciate it.
Very good presentation.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Benson? No?
That is the end of Tammy's presentation, and then next we have the award of bids for bid release number 4.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Thank you. For bid release 4, trade package 02A, building demolition work. Suggested motion is that the Board of Education award trade package 02A, building demolition work to American Demolition Corporation in the amount of $460,147 and accept alternate number 1 in the amount of $5,000 as presented.
So motion. Ms. O'Connell and Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
Hightower,
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez. Motion carried.
And the next one, the suggested motion is that the Board of Education award the trade package 06C site general trades work to Straw Builders Incorporated in the amount of $172,450 and accept alternate 1.
Motion, please. Ms. Sosa and Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Jackson. Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And I just want to preface that alternate 1 is related to the owner-controlled insurance program. So if for any reason the awarded vendor is not eligible to participate in the OSEP, that's why alternate 1 is being accepted.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but
Really, okay.
on this general trades, the only one that we should accept alternate 1 for is the demolition package, the very first one.
Which we did.
Yep.
I apologize. So we did not do number 2 yet. So number 2, we do not need to accept that at this time. I apologize for that.
So retract it.
So we did get I'll read number the second award over for Straw Builders without that.
Okay.
And then I don't think we have a motion and a second yet on the second. Angie?
Okay.
Can we do a second? Okay. Do I retract that?
Yes.
Okay. And to retract the motion that was just read for bid release 4, trade package 06C, site general trades work, and make a new suggested motion that the Board of Education award the trade package 06C, site general trades work to Straw Builders Incorporated in the amount of $172,450.
Okay. Have a motion. Ms. O'Connell. Ms. Sosa. Roll call, please.
Jackson. Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And the third bid award, that the Board of Education award the trade package 32A, site concrete and paving work to Abbey Paving Company Incorporated in the amount of $1,167,955.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Sosa? Ms. Mason? Roll call, please.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Motion carried.
One question regarding this. Looking at 4 bidders, 3 of them were very close, 1 was the lowest. Was there any reasoning, or when we're doing the bid package?
Sure.
What's called out?
So Abbey Paving is a bidder we're very comfortable with. We do a lot of work with them, but the biggest difference, the biggest separator from what we could determine was just the aggressiveness that the bidders had with projected pricing of materials, right? So the other bidders had a lot higher asphalt pricing. Some of this asphalt work is going in the fall of 22, but some of it's not going in until the spring/summer of 23 with the parking lot all the way at the south end. So it came down to the asphalt material price, and then also we have a large allowance included within the bid for undercutting for soil. We know that the district parking lot built right out here in front, the soil conditions are poor under that asphalt. So we know there's a bunch of material that's going to need to be removed, and we included within their bid a certain quantity for them to price. You name 4,000 cubic yards removed and replaced with a certain stone material, you tell us what that is. And there was a big difference in what that number was, and it just came down to Abbey was more aggressive on it. They can perform the work themselves. So that seemed to be the big difference. I will say that Abbey's bid was almost right on the gateway estimate for that bid package. So I feel comfortable with that.
So self-performance, and they're considering the materials market in the spring of 23 to be a lot more favorable.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns? Thank you.
Jeremy, is that the vendor that has the road pressure?
No, that was American Demolition.
And the 4th bid award is that the Board of Education award the trade package 32B landscaping work to Breezy Hill Landscaping Incorporated in the amount of $356,400 and reject alternate number 2.
Motion, Ms. O'Connell and Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. Motion carried.
And that is that.
That's
Bid
it?
awards. Thank you.
All right, let's go right into public participation. Do you have anyone written in the public? Okay.
So we ask that the board accept the written correspondence as presented.
Okay, you have a motion, Ms. O'Connell and Mr. Sosa. Roll call, please.
Sosa. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. O'Connell. Aye. Motion carried. We have a question from the audience.
Okay.
What is the protocol for notifying parents if a student tests positive at the school?
What's the protocol? I'm going to defer that to Dr. Soto.
I'll take that one. So our protocol, I don't know if you can hear me, I hope you can. The protocol is on our website. It's in our Berkeley Blueprint. And so you'll find our protocol listed under the COVID-19 section of how we notify parents and also possibly classrooms. But we're very careful about identifying individual students because of FERPA, which is the Federal Educational Right to Privacy Act, which we have to be careful because we're dealing with health information. But if you have any additional questions, if you call your school's principal, they can walk you through any unique circumstance that may have happened in your school. We also have been working on vaccination clinics, and recently we have begun our first clinic for children that are under 12, because just recently the governor gave us the authorization to offer those clinics, and we have begun doing that as well, because we found the best way to help prevent the spread of COVID is for people to be vaccinated. And having that opportunity now for the children, we think will make a big difference, but we are still working with our parents to increase the number of parents who are allowing their children to be vaccinated.
Okay, any other public? That's all one. Okay, thank you, Dr. Sullivan, appreciate that. Okay, consideration of business. We have pick motion to accept the minutes from the last board meeting as well as in closed session. Ms. Mason and Ms. O'Connor. Roll call.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Good. All right. Anything old business? Dr. Sullivan?
No old business.
Ms. Zimmerman, old business?
No business.
Ms. Vince?
Yes. That the Board of Education approve the accounts and claims payables authorization as presented. There were no questions this month.
No question, good. Got a motion? Mr. Chavez and Ms. Mason. Roll call.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Motion carried.
Ms. Travis, any old business? Oh, I'm sorry.
The monthly building rental report is included in your packet for your review, and this is for informational purposes only.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't mean to,
That's
okay, sure, never want to do that, never.
I'll talk faster next
No,
time.
you're doing just fine. Don't talk fast. Watch that money.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Travis.
No business.
All right. Okay, can I get a motion to go in closed session so we have all the business? Motion in closed session. Ms. O'Connell and Mrs. Chavez. Roll call.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I don't know how long we'll be in closed session. Got a lot to talk about? Medium amount, okay, so. Move back to open session. Board reports. So we're now back in the open session. Do we have any board reports? It's okay.
All right. Well, I haven't had a PACE meeting yet. We're having it Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So I have no report.
And you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mason?
I have no report.
Mr. Chavez?
Okay, policy and legislation meeting before our meeting. And we'll have action to be taken here.
Okay. And we had the facilities meeting, every board meeting, so good updates. I hope there was no questions. And we'll continue to have those as this project goes forward. Okay. Mr. Sosa, transportation? No. Ms. Moore is not here, so there's no report there. Mr. Sosa, what about parent teacher? No? Do we have anyone add any reports to offer? No? Okay. Go right into the superintendent.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. We ask that the board approve the licensed personnel leave requests as presented for Nyla Yukani, Mary Emily LeBlanc, Katie Kalinovich, and Mary Roby.
Have a motion? Ms. O'Connell and Mrs. Chavez. Roll call, please.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the board accept the following resignation. Candy Villegas, Riley, lunchroom supervisor, effective November 17th, 2021.
Motion. Ms. Mason. Mr. Chavez. Roll call.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Motion carried.
We ask that the board approve the educational support staff leave of absence requests as presented for Antonia Santillanes, Noemi Liberio, and Catherine Williams.
Got a motion? Ms. O'Connell, Mrs. Sosa. Roll call.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I'd like to table the educational support staff employment recommendation.
Anything else?
That we ask that the board accept the following policies for first reading and adoption. Policy 722.02, prevention of and response to bullying, intimidation, and harassment, revised.
Got a motion? Ms. Mason, Mr. Chavez. Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the board approve the following fundraiser as presented, Southside PTO Holiday Treasures Gift Shop.
Got a motion? Ms. Mason, Ms. O'Connell. Roll call.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding with the Berkeley Education Association regarding evaluations for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Motion? Ms. Mason, Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And for my oral report, I just have a few remarks. One is we are working on our parent engagement opportunities around the SEL topic as we discussed at the last board meeting. I met with the SEL committee, which included teachers, counselors, and social workers and administrators last Wednesday. I've also spoken with several parents about this topic. Several of our parents have received the book that we talked about last week. And we're working on setting up a series of sessions. We're looking at doing some in person. We're looking at doing some print material that will go out to parents. And wish me luck. I'm going to try to do some 87-second videos to go out because we're District 87 along this topic for our parents, timely topics for SEL. And this happens to be National Kindness Month. And I just thought I'd share something that was given to me today when I was at MacArthur. So what they did is the ambassadors at MacArthur, Mr. President, were giving things like this to other kids who did something nice. Okay. Would you mind reading what that one says?
If I can see it. Thanks for being so helpful.
So kids were giving that to each other and then other kids were giving it to other kids. I saw that during the lunchroom. Isn't that nice?
So nice.
So we're gonna keep working on those kinds of things. We would like, when we return for the new year, to bring back our volunteer program to work to get parents back into our schools. So I'm going to work on protocols for that. But many of our parents want to come back into the schools to help us. And of course, it's been a challenge with vaccination status and mitigation. But we're at a point where we really want to help bring our parents in to the greatest extent that we can. So I'll be back in touch about that. I'd also like to thank, they are gone now, but if I could just say it publicly, to thank from Gilbane, Jeremy Rolling, Des Green, and Connie Fierke, because they and Mrs. Vinci were out there for a little while with us, Mr. White and myself, we were able to work out, I want to say we ended up with 17 different classrooms from Sunnyside School that came out last week. We sort of threaded the needle where our Gilbane people were, and your husband came by, that's right, Mr. O'Connell came by. So we met outside here by the gate, And we had classes of kids who came out, and we had just a real nice construction awareness program for the kids at Sunnyside. And we're working on setting one up for MacArthur as well. And even though the weather's getting colder, we plan for the MacArthur one. We'll start it in here if we need to. We can look out these windows and then take a quick step outside. The kids are fascinated by the career awareness opportunities. And I'd just like to share, well, Mr. White, you were there too. What did you think? Thumbs up?
I think the kids loved it. It was very good. They had a lot of questions answered, a lot of curiosity. It was good.
Mr. Jackson's son was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What did you think? Oh, good. Good.
Give us a report. Let them give us a report. How'd you like it? What did you learn from it? I know you always learn.
What was the most exciting thing you?
Like the gym.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Nice.
Good job. Thank you.
And then I mentioned this also, we're working on our vaccine clinics and updates. We're still working on that. And as Jeremy mentioned, Mr. White and Gilbane, we are going to Northlake and Riley this Wednesday to meet with the faculty. We'll be at their staff meetings to help prepare them for February and what's going to begin happening and the timeline from February onward for the work that's happening up on the north side of the district. So unless there are any questions, that's the end of mine.
That's a one-year project?
No, two summers. This summer and the next summer.
That's one that they split.
They split, right. Also the split. Any questions to Dr. Silva?
Thank you.
Good report. Thank you very much. Ms. Z.
Mr. President. All right. First thing on my oral report, I just wanted to let you know we have been busy. Our school improvement teams have been developing their school improvement goals in the buildings. And this year we've done things a little bit differently. We've been working collaboratively across the district to create district-wide school improvement strategies around our 4 key areas of focus. That's highly effective teams, or our PLC work, responsive learning environments, so our social emotional learning key elements around differentiation, so meeting the needs of all of our diverse learners, and building discourse, so building language development and discussion techniques within our classrooms. And so the teams use these different strategies. So within each of those categories, we came up with district-wide strategies for school improvement. And the teams have been using those strategies to build their goals and action plans for their school improvement plans. So we plan to bring those along with our Illinois Empower School Improvement reports next month. So I want to kind of give you a little preview for next month's meeting. Second steps, as you know, we've used second steps for our social emotional learning program for several years in District 87. But this past year, they have updated their program for kindergarten through 5th grade. So we are now using the updated digital version of their program in the middle. We updated the middle school a couple of years ago. So we have added that this school year for kindergarten through 5th grade in response to better service our students' social emotional needs and experiences that our scholars will encounter throughout the year. So we have been working with our social emotional learning task force and our social workers and counselors to continue to roll out that program to our kindergarten through 5th grade students. And our goal is to really be responsive and analyze the data that we've gathered from our Panorama survey data so that it's unique and targeted to the needs of our students in District 87 and their specific social emotional learning needs as we continue to guide our planning and our sequencing what that program looks like moving forward. So within the coming months, we'll continue to provide additional details to you about that implementation. Next, it's hard to believe, but summer school planning will be starting. So as you know, with any good program, it takes planning and time to do that. So we'll be starting to think about what summer school might look like and the planning and proposals, and hoping to bring that to you in the next month or two, so that we're ready to have that planning start going. Before you know it, there'll be time to no impact. And as part of our long-term special education program review, we continue to look at the needs of our students, including and specifically our behavior support, from behavior coaches, behavior support staff. And as we prepare for our future staffing, and specifically our partnership with PACE, we'll continue to look at that and review those partnerships as part of our planning for staffing and future needs. The other piece that I wanted to just kind of mention to you as well as I've been working with this SPAD4 is, as part of our special education, an additional part of that special education program review is looking at special education coordination is an area for us to continue to review. And as we've discussed previously over the years, last year and this year, is should there be an opportunity to present itself us to hire a special education coordinator, we will do that. We'll continue to look at those needs and reviewing all of our staffing needs in relation to special education. So that's something that this SPAD4 is continuing to look at and look at our data, and we'll continue to present that as we move forward in looking at staffing. And the last part of my oral report is Ms. SPAD4 has been working and looking with our buildings around residency, and any residency issues and investigations are pending, so I just wanted to share with you. So that's continuing to be an ongoing process that she's working on with her team. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Good updates, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's go over to technology problem. Mr. Barr?
Yes. So just 3 quick updates. We are continuing to work on the E-rate process. So we plan on submitting that in the next couple of weeks. That will be for all of the hardware for MacArthur, Sunnyside, Northlake, and Riley specifically. So switches, UPSs, indoor and outdoor access points, and so forth. So since we are a district, we get Category 1 and Category 2 funding. So we seek the majority of that hardware to be covered under the E-rate program, and therefore not in the referendum budget for those specific items. Technology planning for our new buildings as well as our renovations. So we've shifted away from the classroom and are kind of focusing on some specialty spaces, like our performance areas at MacArthur and Northlake, as well as our band and music room. So thinking about audio, recording, displays and things like that. It's been really nice to be able to get the feedback from all of our specialty teachers in those areas. So we'll go and District 87 really seek the input from our staff in designing those specialty spaces, which has been a fun and exciting process. On the network side, it has been a noisy couple of days, especially for that wing of the district. We are coring into this building to provide some redundant fiber to our MacArthur and Sunnyside schools. So a high priority on our network infrastructure and redundancy. As we know, that's a priority now and into the future. And then finally, I know we talked a little bit about potential delays in ordering. So we are being very mindful of that, and a lot of the technology that we plan to install in our new buildings and our renovations, we are looking to make those purchases soon, knowing that lead times are very high for some specific technology items. And we're also being mindful from non-referendum purchases like our Chromebooks. I'm beginning to get quotes now. Sometimes lead times could be several months. So thinking about that now in preparation of next school year. So those are just a few updates from technology.
Okay, good updates. Are we able to get any of the money from the stimulus for the broadband?
Say that one
For
more
the
time.
broadband that was approved today from the government? Is that part of that?
You know what, I can't speak to what was approved today. Our internet is covered under Category 1 for E-rate. So 90% of our internet service provider is covered by the federal government.
Okay.
So we pay about 10 cents on the dollar for our internet to District 87.
Okay. All right, good. Any question for technology? Okay. Ms. Fentz?
Yes. Will the summary of budget, statement of position, and the student activity reports for the period ending October 31, 2021 are provided for your review. And the next one, the change orders number 17 through 22 were presented by Jeremy Rowling in the Facilities Committee earlier this evening. And the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve change order numbers 17 through 22 as presented.
Motion, Ms. O'Connell, Mrs. Chavez. Roll call, please.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. Motion carries.
And the next item is that the Board of Education assign the awarded bid for trade packages 02A demolition work, 06C site general trades work, 32A site concrete and paving work, and 32B landscaping work as presented and approved to the Gilbane Building Company, and authorizes the board president and administration to take all actions reasonable and necessary to accomplish the assignment.
Motion, Mrs. Chavez, Mr. Sosa. Roll call, please.
Sosa.
Aye.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Motion carries.
And the next item, I'm happy to report that we were able to lock in the supplemental gas purchase for the December 2021, January, February 2022. We bumped that up, the supplemental amount to 20,000 therms per month, which should cover the additional increase of usage that we experienced last year because of the additional mitigation efforts. We have to turn the air over, so we're running the air handlers more frequently, changing the air over in the classroom and in the occupied spaces. So that was one of the areas that we used more gas for heating. And then the second area would be for the gas that will be used to heat the construction project as they're working. As Gilbane explained, they'll tarp the lower level, and it's not going to be 80 degrees, but they do have to maintain a certain temperature for any of the brickwork or certain types of work that they're doing. So this most suggested motion is really just for the supplemental purchase for those 3 months. Is that the Board of Education ratify the extension of, that the Board of Education ratify the rate lock with Vanguard Energy Services for natural gas supplies for the additional supplemental gas for December 2021 through February 2022 as presented.
Motion, Ms. O'Connell and Mrs. Sosa. Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And the next item would be the financial advisory agreement with PMA Securities. And this would cover the refunding of bonds issued in Series 2013A as discussed earlier this evening. And Tammy will bring the parameters resolution. She'll have that for me, and I'll bring that forward in December. But this is the financial advisory agreement with PMA for the refunding for whenever we decide to move forward with that. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the financial advisory agreement with PMA Securities Incorporated as presented.
Have a motion. Ms. O'Connell and Mrs. Chavez. Roll call, please.
Chavez.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, and the next item is new post-issuance compliance. It's really regarding record keeping, and this was a new requirement starting with our 2020 bond issue and the 2021 bond issue. So the attached report is just a post-compliance that we have the documents as required. And the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the post-issuance tax compliance reports as presented.
Got a motion? Mr. Chavez and Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And on my monthly update, I wanted to share with the board that the audit update, the audit is moving forward, it's being reviewed, it's in the part of review at this stage, and I am preparing the management discussion and analysis letter and the transmittal letter that will go with the audit. And so we plan to have a representative from Baker Tilly here at the December board meeting to present the audit for your approval. And so I mentioned this earlier, the audit is actually split. Normally we include the federal single audit requirement as part of our audit process, but the state of Illinois has agreed that the single audit, which is a federal requirement, has a later due date. So they agreed that instead of having that be required at the same time frame and the same due date as our regular audit, that single audit can follow up with the federal timeline. So that process started this week. It's the CIFA audit, and that is moving forward quickly. And we hope to have an update on that at the December meeting. And then the core planning committee for furniture and for the new building, as well as the renovations at Riley North Lake. Those committee meetings are ongoing and they're moving along well. Mr. Byrne alluded to part of it for the special areas. And so each time the committee meets, they're targeting different areas, whether it's regular classroom space, special space. They'll get into the gym, library areas, and then also the cafeteria areas. So that's moving along on schedule. And then the last item was just to remind the board with early board meetings, not all of the invoices and bills come in time that we're required to pay. So we will run another bill list later this month to get those paid, and then that will come with, we'll bring that list forward to the December meeting. And in order to meet the due dates and the timelines for required payments, we will make those payments in due dates, as we've done in the past. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Vance? Good updates, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get our update from our facility. Mr. White?
I'll keep it short. Jeremy from Gilbane did a good job of updating the construction down here. Sunnyside, I just wanted to add to that they are at 145 plus days of work safely. So I thought that was pretty good with all the heavy machinery and equipment out there that they have 0 injuries so far. So I don't want to jinx that. I want to say good job. As far as Jefferson School, the curbs are in. The stone is down, they're getting ready for the blacktop on that area this week. After school hours, they will be working on the electricity in the building, running the electricity out the lights. And that's happening this week. And we're still waiting on the playground equipment to come in. And that's all I have.
You said a CBN report this week? No, yeah.
I don't know the day it's gonna be poured, but it's prepped and ready.
Good, okay.
So
It
the
looks
curbs and
nice.
stuff are all in, everything's in. So,
The image looked real nice.
nice.
Did you see it? Did you ever see it?
Yeah.
What about you?
Glad
Alex?
you're all-
You have all
Yeah, they got the new handicap ramp in on the gym side there. And that is completely messed up. So,
Good design, it's gonna make that corner look a little bit better. Okay. Thank you, good update. Appreciate it, Mr. White. Okay. Ms. Travis?
Hi, my oral report, vacancies are there for you to review for certified and support vacancies. We still have 9 certified, 9 support staff vacancies. The district, last month, I shared with you, employees were interested in the flu shot clinic, and so we were able to set a date for a flu shot clinic, so it'll be December 16th, and it'll be from 3 until 5 or 5:30. And we have 40 people, about 40 people who are interested in participating.
Good work.
So, yeah, so we're looking forward to that. And that's the end of my report, unless you have any questions.
Good work on that.
You said December 16th?
16, yeah.
What is it gonna be?
Here,
District office.
district office, and the board.
Are you getting in line? So we got 41.
She said 5 to 5:30.
5, yes, to 5,
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Do we just show up?
Are you getting in line?
Or do we need to register?
But it's for the employees.
Sorry, we don't follow.
Mr. Travis, I see a lot of improvement on the vacancies. Thank you for that. Even though you got some open, but you're doing a really good job on that. Thank you. You know, I mean, I know we got a lot of situations where we don't get the right people in the right spots, but keep working it. Keep working. Don't get
Some more Zoom,
Career
Jackson, what about that?
We're getting ready for the career fair season for next school year. So I'm hoping the universities are talking to the candidates.
Okay. Do you have any other new business? Okay, the announcement, next board meeting will be December 20th, 7 p.m. Week before Christmas. Yep. Right?
When do our schools?
The reason it's so expensive is the bid.
What do you, okay, 2 days, 21st?
December 20th, 7 p.m. Put in your calendar. Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to Ms. Mason and Mr. Jackson? Roll call, please.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa. Chavez. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Motion carries.